The battery white.
Got my stick. Oh my goodness.
Good morning. Welcome to Theodore Parker Unitarian Universalist Church. I'm Robin Colgrove, and my family and I have been coming to Theodore Parker since the last millennium. As we enter into worship, we bring with us all of the sorrows and joys of our week. And we know that here we are held in loving community. Here we are reminded that we are part of something larger than ourselves. Here we seek to counter oppression, to work for healing and justice in a bruised and broken world. Here we invite all of you to bring your perspectives, your beliefs and doubts, and all that is unique and wondrous about you to our service. In the spirit of love, all are welcome here. For those joining us in person, a few things you might want to know. Our congregation is mask optional, and if you'd like to be seated in an area where others are also wearing a mask, this section on your right, my left, is reserved for people wearing masks. You can use the QR codes at either entrance or in the pews to pull up the order of service on your phone, or take one of the large print copies available at either entrance. Our service is recorded today and will be available on YouTube later. If you'd like to have a joy or concern shared with the congregation today during our meditation and prayer, we invite you to fill out a card anytime before our meditation hymn on the table to your right. You may also want to light a silent candle of joy or concern at any time during the worship service. People of all ages are welcome to move about in the sanctuary as they need to, or to make themselves comfortable in the cozy zone in front of the first pew. Today, children are invited to be with us during the whole service. During the service, our child care provider, Shay, is available to be with nursery-age children in the nursery located in the parish hall. Many thanks to Meredith St. John, who is our camera point person today, and to Tom Keidel, who is our Zoom usher. If you're new to Theodore Parker Church or visiting today, we'd love to stay in touch. You're invited to fill out a connection card, which will give you an opportunity to sign up for our weekly updates and help us welcome you. A link to the connection card will be in the chat, as well as our contact info. Those joining us here in the sanctuary are encouraged to fill in the contact card you'll find in the pews within the welcome brochure. A special welcome this morning to our guest musician, Chester Brezhnev. We'd like to take a moment to greet one another. For those of you on Zoom, putting your video on for this time helps us connect. Meredith, would you please put our sanctuary screen in the gallery view so we can see our offsite congregation? Give everybody a big wave. The camera is onto the clock in the back. As we prepare to greet each other, if online, you may post a hello in the chat. If you are physically present in the sanctuary, we invite you to greet one another and say good morning, and please ask for consent before offering a hug or handshake. Please greet one another.
Good morning and happy Easter. I'm Reverend Heather Concannon. I'm the minister of this congregation. My pronouns are she, her, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to this community this morning. This morning's opening words are from Reverend Gretchen Haley, written in honor of both Easter and Transgender Day of Visibility, which is also today. When Jesus declares, even death cannot hold him back, maybe what he means to say is, nothing can keep you from the life you were meant for. Closets, like tombs, are no match for the person radically willing to forge their own path, proclaim their own name, transgress norms, transfuse truths, transform the elements, transfix the world in a story of love that transcends binaries and belief systems, love that calls all of our stories sacred, and calls all of us beloved. When the crocuses find their way through the rocks and the snow, maybe what they mean to say is, we see you, transmitting light even in the darkest of days, transcribing the future on our hearts, transversing borders of gender, and transitioning this world from judgment to joy, like it's our birthright, for of course it is. For this day and this life is a gift given to us all, equally, a transparent miracle inviting us all to be finally free. Come, let us rejoice and give thanks, and let us worship together. I invite us to rise in body or spirit for our opening hymn, number 61, Lo, the Earth Awakes Again. The lyrics will be on your screen, and they are also in your gray hymnal. And I think we have chalice lighters this morning. Is that true? Please join me in saying our shared covenant once in English and once in Spanish in honor of our sibling community in Plazuelas, El Salvador. The words will be on your screen. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. El amor es el espíritu de esta iglesia, y el servicio es nuestra oración. Esta es nuestra gran promesa, vivir juntos en paz, buscar la verdad con amor y ayudarnos los unos a los otros.
Good morning. My name is Rose. I serve as this congregation's religious educator, and along with Reverend Heather, we have a story to share this morning. As Unitarian Universalists, we have a wide range of relationship with the stories of Jesus and the stories of the Bible. And on significant days in the Christian tradition, like today, like Easter, we feel that it's important to tell these stories, to tell the stories of that tradition. So today, Reverend Heather and I will be sharing the story of Jesus' life and death that has become to be the basis of Easter.
So one other holiday that we celebrate in this community is Christmas, which celebrates Jesus' what? And the Easter story picks up many, many years later than that, after Jesus had grown up and become a carpenter and a spiritual leader. And our story picks up even after he had begun to preach that God loves who? Everyone. You guys got it. You've been paying attention. So our story picks up one year during the Jewish feast of Passover, and in that time, every year, the Hebrews, who were the Jewish people, went to Jerusalem to celebrate the feast of Passover and to remember how Moses led them through the waters to freedom.
Jesus was headed to Jerusalem to celebrate the Passover feast with his family and friends, as he had done many times before. But this year, as Jesus traveled to Jerusalem, crowds of people came to be with him. Jesus had become very well known among the Hebrews because he seemed to have special powers. He could talk to a huge crowd of people and make them feel stronger and more hopeful. He could teach difficult things and make it seem easy. It was even said that he could heal the sick.
But not everyone thought Jesus was so wonderful. Some people thought he was breaking the rules of the Jewish religion and gaining too much power. Jesus lived in a place controlled by the Roman Empire, and some people thought that he was threatening the emperor in power.
Jesus' friends, the disciples, were worried about Jesus' safety, and so they were afraid for him to join the big Passover feast held in the village. On the first night of Passover, Jesus instead celebrated the Seder dinner with his 12 disciples away from the crowds. But they were still afraid. After dinner, they went out to the garden to sleep. They thought it would be safe there. But one of the disciples, Judas, sneaked away and brought some temple guards back to the garden. Then it happened. People who didn't like Jesus took him to the Roman authorities, who asked him lots and lots of questions. They wouldn't let him go. Later, they nailed him to a cross to kill him, and Jesus died.
Jesus died on a Friday, and his friends took his dead body from the cross and carried it gently to a cave and put him in a tomb, a special place for the dead. And they rolled a huge, heavy stone across the entrance so that nobody could disturb his body. And everybody rested the next day because Jesus was Jewish, and Saturday is a day of rest in the Jewish faith. But when Sunday dawned, Jesus' mother and some other women went to the tomb to get his body ready to be buried. And as they walked to the tomb, they asked each other, "Who will roll away the stone so we can get inside?" But when they got there, they saw that the stone had already been rolled away. And when they went inside, they saw a young man dressed in a white robe. What on earth was going on? Where was Jesus, they wondered. "Don't be afraid," said the man. "You are looking for Jesus who died. But he is risen from the dead. He isn't here. But please go tell his friends that Jesus has gone to Galilee."
Well, they didn't know what to believe. Someone rising from the dead? Sounded a little out there. But the women left the tomb and went to tell others what they had seen and heard. In a sense, those women were the first preachers in the Christian tradition. And Jesus' disciples went out and taught other people the things that Jesus had taught them, and they called themselves Christians. People have been telling the story for thousands of years. Just like the women at the end of the story, we hear it today, and many of us aren't sure what to believe. Some people celebrate Easter because they believe that Jesus died and came back to life again. Some people celebrate Easter because Jesus still lives in people's minds and hearts. But the truth in the story doesn't have to be limited by whether we believe the truth of the story. So we celebrate the truths in the Easter story: the triumph of love over hate, the possibility of new relationship after death, the truth of change and transformation that is a central part of our existence.
Thank you for listening to our story. We are having an all-ages service, so kids are going to stay in worship with us today, though there is nursery care if that is helpful. And I would like to invite up John Lambert, and I believe we have a poem written as well by Jake Bittner, yes? So John and Jake are going to give our final stewardship testimonial as our stewardship season closes out today.
Good morning. So I'm John Lambert, and I'm a member of the stewardship team as well. I was raised a Unitarian in the town of Stockport, near Manchester, England. In fact, my maternal grandfather was a Unitarian minister in Manchester. When I was 10 and 11 years old, the Stockport Unitarian Chapel my family attended had a young American minister, Richard Kimball. 20 years later, my wife Cecilia and I moved from Glasgow, Scotland to the Boston area, knowing almost nobody. I remembered that Dick Kimball was from Boston, so I looked him up in the phone book. Remember when phone books were a thing? There were two listed, one with Reverend in front of his name, and so it came to pass that Cecilia and I first came to TPC on Easter Sunday, 1982. And 42 years ago, we joined Theodore Parker Church. In 1984-85, Dick, who I later learned was being funded by spending down TPC's small endowment, was unable to preach for over a year because of illness, and the congregation dwindled to a very few, perhaps some 20 members. Why? Well, there were no functioning committees. Everything was done by the minister. And there was no such thing as a stewardship team or a pledge drive. So there was no sense of ownership or belonging, and the congregation simply evaporated. The small band of us that couldn't bear the thought that the church named for Theodore Parker could simply vanish learned about governance and stewardship with the help of Reverend Tim Ashton and the Mass Bay district of UU churches, and we persisted. And slowly, over nearly 4 decades, TPC has grown to the point of being able to call Reverend Heather as a full-time minister, the first full-time minister since the 1970s or even earlier. It is so exciting to have been part of a 42-year journey from the time in the late 1980s when on one occasion the congregation numbered 6 persons, including the pianist and soloist, to the packed church today and many others joining on Zoom. Pledging is the key to this successful transition. Cecilia and I pledged to help grow this congregation committed to UU values centered on love, working for justice, tolerance, and compassion. We pledged to feel we belong to this community and to feel a sense of ownership around our joint ministry with Reverend Heather. We pledged to support our activities, especially the youth groups we have been involved with over the years and continue to be. pledging builds connections. If you are new to TPC, just been coming a few weeks or months, not even a member yet perhaps, we'd love for you to join us on our journey as TPC grows into the future. That is a nice segue to introducing Jake Bittner, who will read a poem to close out the testimonials of the March's stewardship drive. If Cecilia and I represent the deep roots going back more than 40 years, Jake represents newly sprouting leaves on TPC's stewardship tree. Thank you, and here's Jake.
Thank you. Again, I'm Jake. We've been attending a family who are not here this morning for 6 months. And this was inspired by the tree that the stewardship campaign has been using. It's called Becoming a Root. I shall lie beneath the tree of life when I die. I shall become a root, anchoring and feeding the tree. The tree shall embrace me, enfold me, encompass me, until I am united with its strong wood and ancient bark. Until one day a new fruit shall grow, returning me from the tree to the world. A new fruit, but still the same. I give and I receive. I am given and I am received. One unending motion of the tree of life.
Friends, now is the time in our service when we deepen into a space of contemplation and prayer. So I invite you to find a comfortable position, enter into this moment, here and now, and take a few nurturing breaths. If you're joining us in the sanctuary this morning and would like to put a joy or concern in our basket right here, you can fill out a prayer card during our centering hymn. And if you are joining on Zoom today and wish to share a joy or concern during our time of prayer, I invite you to type that into the chat now. I invite us to remain seated and join in singing hymn number 402, From You I Receive.
From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and for this we live. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live.
This morning, a prayer of gratitude for all of the TPC contingent who went to the ceasefire action yesterday and are showing up for our values in the world. a note of remembrance and love for Laura Dowd on the anniversary of her passing, from Meredith Richmond. And from Charlie and Carol Landritis, Carol says, "My surgeries went well this past week. I greatly appreciate all of the lovely cards, texts, and thoughts sent to me." For all of these prayers that we hold in our hearts, and for those that remain unspoken, we light a candle. And let us join together in a space of contemplation and prayer. Holy One, Spirit of new life, new beginnings, transformation. There is so much in this world and in our lives that we long to see transformed. There is so much death, the crushing grip of empire, the horrors of war and famine and oppression, disconnection and despair. Spirit of love and transformation, on this Easter morning, help us to see the possibilities of beginning anew. Help us to see the places where transformation might take place, making space for hope, for connection, for authenticity, for healing. Help us to be agents of that transformation, practicing resurrection in our own lives and communities. Remind us that death does not have the final word, that empire does not have the final word, that in the end it is love that is resurrected over and over again. It is love that has the final word. Together we rest into several moments of shared silence.
Today's reading is What Abides, What Returns, from the poet Jan Richardson. Easter draws near as we watch the rain. We know the drama and the pageantry that lie ahead, the commotion that is owed to such a miracle. Meanwhile, we go on quietly raising the dead, tending them as more than a memory, learning to live in the curious marriage of absence and presence that settles into the bones and the aching but durable heart. We know resurrection is something not merely to be anticipated, but also daily lived, as we reckon with what abides, what returns of the beloved, who cannot be unknown, who having passed into us will not be so easily shed. Still, I think of Mary Magdalene and the secret she carried when she left that empty tomb. How resurrection is a strange dance of reunion and release, how our loving will always ask of us a letting go. Yet in the asking, a promise that we love knows how to find us, even by the path that will bear us far away from here. So ends the reading. Generosity is a spiritual practice in our Unitarian Universalist congregations. We give to remind ourselves of how many gifts we have to offer. We give to remember that we are part of something bigger than ourselves. We give because we believe in music and sacred space. We give with gratitude for all we have been given and with the faith that together we have more than enough. Links to donate will be in the chat, so you can take a meditative moment writing out a check and sending it to the church after the service. Ushers will be coming around the sanctuary to collect an offering from those in the pews who wish to donate something more tangible. As Yukiko and Chester Brezhnev will, oh no, take that back. The Theodore Parker Singers, is that right? Are we the officer? Yes, take that back.
Thank you to our choir for this beautiful music this morning. So friends, the Easter story can be a difficult one to wrestle with as Unitarian Universalists. But as we said in our story this morning, the truth in a story doesn't need to be limited to whether we believe the truth of a story. And Rose and I this week have been contemplating what truths the idea of resurrection might hold for us in our lives and in the world right now. So this morning, each of us will reflect a little bit on where resurrection is showing up in our lives and in the world, and we will invite you to reflect on these themes through a ritual we will share in a little bit of making space for resurrection.
As a Unitarian Universalist with a pagan spiritual center, I've often struggled to find my place in the Easter story. My sense is that that's a common experience in this community from many different angles. My own wrestling with this story has been heightened in recent years in ways I imagine also may be common. Just 2 days from now, my family will be honoring the 3rd anniversary of my mother's death. And in that overlap, I feel myself carrying a particularly tender question. What is it to honor the story of resurrection of one man coming back to life when my own beloved has not been afforded the same miracle? These questions swirl around me every Easter. I don't presume to have found full answers, but recently I found some new ways of relating to this story. As part of my seminary coursework, I've been studying the frameworks of early Christianity, the religion that emerged in the first few hundred years after Jesus was killed. This was a religion that was persecuted by the Roman Empire and a site of resistance to that empire for hundreds of years before imperial leaders embraced the growing religion and started using it as a tool for their own ends. I've learned that one common practice among early Christian communities was something that might be named as memorial feasts, ritual meals that were understood as being shared between the living and the dead. They did not believe the realm of the dead to be so far away from that of the living. Relationship with ancestors was a more common part of everyday life, and calling on the dead to share a meal was one way to call them spiritually into presence. Jesus, their great teacher, was among the ancestors honored. But this communion practice did not only offer connection with Christ. His Spirit was called upon among many others. For me, this practice calls to mind the words of Jan Richardson that we heard earlier. Meanwhile, we go on quietly raising the dead, tending to them as more than a memory, learning to live in a curious marriage of absence and presence that settles into the bones and the aching but durable heart. For 3 years, I've begun almost every day by pouring some of my morning tea onto my altar at home and saying a blessing of gratitude for my mother and for all the other ancestors who guide my life. This has been a ritual of my own creation, but with the memorial feasts of early Christianity in mind, I wonder, what if this also is a practice of resurrection? This kind of resurrection does not make our beloved dead return to us in physical form, does not deny the reality of death or hide away from it, but still, it offers the possibility of new life, the life of the remembered, the life of relationship still possible in the here and now. Whether we're calling upon spiritual ancestors, the teachers and guides that help show us the path to good living, or we're calling upon the loved ones that we have lost and miss dearly, naming and holding space for the dead brings them back into our lives. It is a kind of resurrection available to all of us.
Friends, there are so many ways to experience and practice resurrection, whether we're relating to those who have passed on or in our own lives among the living. In addition to today being Easter, today is also Transgender Day of Visibility, a day to celebrate the joy and resilience of transgender and non-binary communities and individuals, and to elevate the experience of these communities.
What's non-binary, Jean?
Seems like we could-
Gender. There's a new term people say, not transgender or something, but
We're going to mute
non-binary.
everyone on Zoom right now. If you're on Zoom at home, you may not be muted. So we're going to, that's the sound we're hearing right now. So I'm going to make sure to mute everyone on Zoom, but just...
And it is a good question. I'll just say non-binary, sometimes we're taught that gender is a binary, right? Male and female, but we know that there are ways to live our lives that are not constrained by these boxes. And non-binary is an identity that some people use that when they feel like they don't fit neatly into one of those boxes, among many other identities that people claim that are outside of the binary of gender. So I just love that these days are aligned this year, because I think that so much of what I have learned from transgender, gender nonconforming, non-binary, and genderqueer people in my life, some of the many identities that people claim, is about embracing the way that we change throughout our lifetimes, the ways that we let parts of ourselves fade away or even die in order to live more fully. And friends, isn't that a type of resurrection? So I'd like to read to you an excerpt from the words of Reverend M. Jade Kaiser, who curates the resource Enfleshed, which is a Christian queer liturgical resource. And they write this about Transgender Day of Visibility. The way we let change work its magic in us. Language, bodies, names, perceptions. Resisting the illusion of control, we surrender to the gifts of all that wish to unfold, unfurl, unbecome. Even beloved things, even scary things, even when it means there will be loss. Our lives are a testament to what can flourish in letting go, in refusing to play the games, in climbing out of the confines of the expected and moving willfully into the lands of strange, wild, unruly. The way all it takes is a whisper, something within that unsettles us into a different direction, calls us like a path home, the power that lives there in the listening, in the saying yes, in the agency born of the deepest kind of knowing. Impossible things become possible, even more so together, the way we call that God. And friends, what a message for Easter if I have ever heard one. Or as the author Jan Richardson said in our reading this morning, still I think of Mary Magdalene and the secret she carried when she left the empty tomb, how resurrection is a strange dance of reunion and release, how our loving will always ask of us a letting go. Friends, this morning as we consider the ways in which resurrection is a strange dance of reunion and release, I give so much thanks for the trans and non-binary beloveds in my life and in our communities for leading the way in demonstrating what is possible when we let go of the boxes we have been taught to inhabit, whose lives are a testament to what can flourish in the letting go. And all of us live with that strange dance of reunion and release. All of us have something that can flourish if we let something else go. If we accept what is true rather than what we wish were true, not just gender or identity, but perhaps in relationships or in letting go of anger or in letting go of physical items in order to make space for some new way of being. So this morning we are going to share in a ritual of letting go in order to let something else flourish. And if you're here with us this morning in person, when you entered the sanctuary, you should have gotten a small piece of paper. And if you didn't get a small piece of paper and you want to raise your hands, we've got some ushers who are ready to bring them to you. They've got some baskets. There's another basket up here. And if you're watching from home, I invite you to find a small piece of paper and a writing utensil, or simply to use this time as a time of meditation. So this Easter, we are thinking about what in our lives needs to be resurrected. And often what gets resurrected is not the same as it was before. We often need to let something go in order to resurrect something else. So on your paper, I invite you to write down what in your life you need to let go in order to let something more beautiful grow. What is the stone that you need to push away to resurrect something important in your life? Or to use perhaps more of a gardening metaphor, what is breaking down or dying so that something else might be able to take root? In a few moments, I'm going to invite you to come forward and drop your piece of paper in this bowl of water, and you can mix it around a few times, and the paper will dissolve. And as you watch it dissolve, imagine yourself letting it go. I invite you to come forward. We'll come down these aisles and go back down the center. I invite you to come forward now.
Makes a difference there. I don't think I ever noticed that. Little teeny. Oh, I think there used to be a few here. Maybe not. It looks like that.
So, friends, as we let things go this Easter, we also, one more. Come on up. Thank you. Perfect. As we let things go this Easter, we also hold hope for resurrection, for good things that might arise from loss or from letting go, from heartbreak or even from death. And here we have seeds that represent our hope for new growth and for new life. So I invite you to call out from where you are sitting, what things in your life are you hoping to grow or resurrect this season? And for each thing we hear, Rose will plant one seed in the dirt. So what are you hoping to resurrect or to see grow in the next season? And if you'd like to put it on Zoom, I can read those answers as well. Work. Adventure. Tolerance. Faith. Mindfulness. Love, patience, peace, joy. Viburnum. Gardening. Friends or plants? Friends. I'm also hoping to grow plants. Justice. Understanding. Forgiveness. Love. Togetherness. Curiosity. Peace. Kindness. Happiness. Physical strength. I didn't hear that one. Gratitude. Online we have compassion and spirit and mind. Family. Resilience. Thankfulness. Creativity. And friends, as we know, in order for something to be resurrected, something first must also die. And we see this in the Easter story, and we also see this in the natural cycle of decay that offers nutrients for future growth. So we will use this water, which contains all of the things that we are letting go in order to resurrect something else, to water these seeds. I think we're going to do it symbolically because the water is not actually, I think, healthy for the seeds. But we'll use this water to let the cycle of death and letting go and decay and breaking down make way for new life and for resurrection in our hearts as it nurtures what we've planted today. Yeah. And let us pray. Spirit of life that nurtures new life in the midst of loss and death, help us to notice these cycles of death and resurrection in our lives. Help us to let go when we need to let go in order to grow something new and beautiful. Help us to face change with courage, knowing that with change often comes loss, but also new life. Spirit of life, this Easter, what may we remember the sacredness of these cycles, of death and rebirth, of letting go and growth, of loss and resurrection. May it be so, and amen. Friends, I invite us to rise in body or spirit for our closing hymn, number 269, Lo, the Day of Days is Here. The words will be on your screen.
Festival of
Friends, this Easter, may we live into these cycles: resurrection and loss, loving and letting go, death and rebirth, new growth and change. May it be so, and amen. A few invitations and announcements before we close. I invite you to join us. If you're joining us in person, I invite you to join us for coffee hour next door in the parish hall, and if you are on Zoom, to join for breakout rooms. Also a reminder, in honor of Trans Day of Visibility, I will remind us again, we have stickers for our name tags that list your pronouns, whether or not you use pronouns that you think other people can guess. It is a way that we are welcoming to make sure that we are sharing what our pronouns are so that people can refer to us correctly in ways that feel good to us. So please take a pronoun sticker and put it on your name tag if you haven't gotten one already. They'll be right by the door, and they're in the parish hall in future weeks should you need one. At noon today, Diana's List is meeting. The Middle East Advocacy Group is meeting in the parlor. A couple Sundays from now, on Saturday, April 13th, we will have our next Music on Center concert. And the organizers are looking for some people to put up flyers around town. Wherever you live, if you can take some flyers and put them up around town, that would be fantastic. On April 21st, we will have our Poetry Sunday, and we are looking for a few more people to share poems. So if you have a poem to share, please see Tom Keidel. And finally, we have an update from our stewardship team, I believe.
If the stewardship tree could be put up there. Actually, it's very good news to date. We've got 69 pledges now, which I think is... 70. Just grew by one in the church. Now our goal is 90. The pledge total, actually this will be, it's actually more than 94% of our goal of $267,000. So, but our goal for the number of pledges is 90. So all pledges are welcome. If after expenses all you can afford to spare is a cup of coffee a week, $100 or $250, depending on whether your coffee's from Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks, it's all very welcome. Many small pledges can collectively be a mighty, powerful voice. Now, if you're a prevaricator, and you know who you are, well, the next fiscal year, beginning July 1 and running into 2025, can seem a long way off. But the Finance Committee and Board will be working on the next fiscal year's budget in April and May to present to the TPC's annual meeting in June. For their budget planning, it helps to know the amount pledged for next year by the beginning of April, which is tomorrow. So let's add some 20 more leaves to our pledge tree and have a successful drive. The next slide is the most important one. This is how to pledge if you haven't made a note of it already. And please leave that up while I walk back to this so people can actually have time to make a note of it.
Thank you, John. And can we just have a huge round of applause for our stewardship team? Friends, they do so much work to keep our congregation running, and so much of it is behind the scenes, but it is incredible how organized and how much work they do. So thank you to the stewardship team. With that, we will close out with some music from Yukiko and our guest musician, Chester Bresniak. Thank you both so much for your music this morning. Go in peace and join us for coffee hour.
Thank you.